Dive into the thrilling world of banned guns, where history's most notorious firearms come to life. From groundbreaking gadgets to military masterpieces, these are the guns that made lawmakers sweat and societies buzz. Get ready to uncover the wild tales and secrets of the weapons that went from cutting edge to strictly off limits. It's a roller coaster ride through the twists and turns of technology, politics, and culture that turned these firearms into legends. The HK-G3 is a famous gun made by a German company called Heckler & Koch in the late 1950s. It started off as a team project with Spain based on a Spanish gun called the Setme. After World War II, Europe really needed a strong and reliable gun for its armies, and the G3 was Germany's answer. It shoots a big bullet that was chosen by NATO, the team of Western countries, to be their standard, so it packs a serious punch. What makes the G3 special is a cool trick inside it that makes it super reliable and easier to shoot despite its powerful ammo. It has these two little rollers that slow down the opening of the gun after a shot is fired. This means the gun doesn't kick as hard when you shoot it, and it doesn't jam up easily, even in tough conditions. This clever feature helped make the G3 known for being accurate and dependable. The G3 is also pretty versatile, with lots of different versions and add-ons developed over time. It's made mostly of metal, which made it quicker and cheaper to make than other guns without losing any toughness. It comes with a sturdy stock to brace against your shoulder, a handle to grip, and you can switch between shooting one bullet at a time or spraying bullets continuously. However, bringing the G3 into the United States became a big no-no after 1989 because of a new rule by President George H.W. Bush. This rule stopped the import of semi-automatic rifles that weren't for sporting purposes, which is a pretty vague idea. Because the G3 was made for the military, with features like being able to shoot lots of bullets quickly and use big magazines, it got caught up in this ban. Even though people in the US who loved guns would really like to have one, this rule made it hard to get original G3s or even ones made by other companies that are just like it. The FN FNC, short for Fabrique Nationale Carabine, is a rifle that shoots 5.56mm bullets and was made by a Belgian company called FN Herstal back in the 1970s. When NATO decided to use the same type of ammo across the board, FN Herstal saw a chance to make a new rifle that could be used everywhere, replacing a bunch of different guns that were being used at the time. They took what didn't work from an earlier model, the FNCAL, and improved on it, creating the FNC. The Belgian military officially started using it in 1989. The cool thing about the FNC is that it mixes some of the best parts of two famous guns, the AK-47 and the M16. It's as reliable as the AK-47, but shoots as well and is as comfortable to use as the M16. A big deal about the FNC is how it's built to work really well even when it's dirty or the weather is bad, thanks to its gas-operated system and a special rotating part that locks the bullet in place when fired. It's got a knob you can turn to make sure it keeps working smoothly in different conditions. You can also choose how it fires, single shots, 3 shots at a time, or fully automatic. Plus, it has a stock you can fold up to make it easier to carry around, especially in tight spots or in a vehicle. People like the FNC because it's tough, easy to take apart and clean, and you can switch out parts. It's designed so that the top and bottom halves are connected by a hinge, making it super easy to open up and maintain. However, bringing the FNC into the US got tricky and was eventually stopped by a rule made in 1989 by President George H.W. Bush. This rule said that semi-automatic rifles that weren't for sporting purposes couldn't be brought into the country. Even though the FNC was well regarded and used by militaries and police around the world, it got caught up in this rule. This wasn't about the gun being bad, but more about how laws and international agreements can affect what guns can come into the US, and what counts as a sporting gun can be pretty vague. The Beretta AR70 is this neat rifle from Italy whipped up by the big-name gun makers at Beretta back in the 70s. They wanted to give the Italian army something new and snazzy that shot the same bullets all the NATO buddies agreed on. That's the 5.56 by 45mm ones. With the whole world a bit on edge during the Cold War, everyone was keen on having the best and most reliable firepower, and Italy's answer was the AR70. The cool thing about the AR70 is how it keeps on ticking no matter what. It's got this inside setup that's pretty similar to the SIG 550 rifle, which is all about making sure the gun runs smooth and doesn't wear out too fast. It means you can trust your shots to go where you want them to, even if you're in a tough spot. And it's got some neat features too, like a cover that flips open by itself when you fire to keep dirt out, and a bit on the end of the barrel that lets you stick on a grenade launcher if things get really spicy. But trying to get the AR70 into the US? That's where things got tricky, and it's why you don't see them around much here. The main snag was this 1989 rule from President George H.W. Bush. It put the brakes on bringing in certain semi-automatic rifles that weren't seen as being for sporting purposes. Since the AR70 was all about military action, complete with the option to tack on a grenade launcher, it didn't make the cut as a sporting gun and got banned from coming in. This move was supposed to keep military-grade weapons off the everyday streets, but it also turned the AR70 into something of a collector's item in the US, even though it's still rocking and rolling with military and police forces elsewhere. The Finnish Velet rifles are like the upgraded cousins of the famous AK-47. Made in Finland around the late 50s and early 60s, these guns were Finland's answer to making their military gear better. They wanted to keep the tough-as-nails reputation of the AK-47, but make a gun that worked even better and nicer to use. So they came up with the Velet series, including a bunch of different models like the M62, M71, M76, and M78, each with its own special tweaks. What really makes the Velet rifle shine is how well they're made. Finland didn't mess around and used top-notch manufacturing to make these guns more accurate and reliable than your average AK-47. One of the cool upgrades was adding rear aperture sights, which are basically a little circle you look through to aim instead of the usual notch. This small change makes a big difference in hitting your target more precisely. Another big plus is how smoothly these rifles operate. They're built to a higher standard, so everything moves more cleanly and reliably, making shooting them a smoother experience. They also have really good barrels, so bullets go exactly where you aim. But getting your hands on a Velet rifle in the United States got a lot harder after 1989. That year, President George H.W. Bush made a rule that stopped certain semi-auto rifles from being brought into the country if they weren't considered sporting enough. Since Velet rifles were designed for military use and came with things like detachable magazines and pistol grips, they got lumped in with other banned guns, even though they were really popular with gun collectors and shooters for being such high-quality pieces. This ban has turned Velet rifles into something of a treasure hunt for gun enthusiasts and collectors in the US. Their rarity, combined with how awesome they are compared to the AK design, has made them super sought after and respected in the gun collecting world. The Daewoo K1A1 rifle is a super cool gun from South Korea, created in the late 70s to be both light and handy for the South Korean military. They needed something easy to carry that could still pack a punch, useful for just about everyone from foot soldiers to special forces. It's got a lot of the best bits from famous guns around the world, and people often compare it to the American AR-15 because it's made from aluminium and is super user-friendly. What's really neat about the K1A1 is its gas system, a mix of the kind you'd find in the AR-15 and a more traditional gas piston setup. This makes the gun reliable in all sorts of weather and easy to take care of. Plus, being made of aluminium, it's lighter than a lot of other guns, which makes it a breeze to handle without losing any toughness. It's got a folding stock too, which means you can make it smaller to fit into tight spaces or for jumping out of planes. The way it's designed, with controls similar to the AR-15, means if you've used one of those, you'll find the K1A1 easy to get along with. There's also this special part on the end of the barrel that helps keep the flash down when you shoot and can even be used to launch grenades. However, trying to bring the K1A1 into the US hit a big roadblock in 1989 when President George H.W. Bush made a rule that stopped certain semi-auto rifles from being imported if they weren't for sporting uses. Because the K1A1 was made for the military and had things like a magazine that comes off and a handle you can grip, it wasn't allowed anymore. This rule made the K1A1 kind of rare in the US, turning it into something gun collectors and enthusiasts really want to get their hands on. This whole situation shows how tricky it can be to balance military tech with what civilians are allowed to own, making the K1A1 a rare gem for gun lovers here.